Hiya, it's Hannah the Artisan Duck, and I thought today we would make this trio of hearts brick stitch necklace. For the beads today I'm using size 11 Delicas, and as you can see I've chosen a gold and this sort of champagne ivory colour, and then this is the gold again. For the pattern I have worked out my own pattern here. It's a little bit big to show all of it on the camera at the same time, but this will be available as a PDF for you to download off my blog. So if you know brick stitch and you're comfortable, you can go and get the pattern and just, you know, do that, or you can get the pattern and then come back and join me and we'll stitch it together. So this is what I'm using, and as you can see we're actually going to do our brick stitch going upwards, so we're not going to brick stitch that way up, we're going to start from one side and work our way across. I will have that off to the side. What I'm going to do is show you most of it, and then some other bits I'll fast forward to, but I'll always talk you through what I'm going to do and why I'm doing it before I move on. So I'm really hoping you can follow along if that's what you'd like to do. Right, so I've got my beading needle and an arm span length of beading thread here, and we're going to start our pattern here. So we're adding these 3 beads to start with, and where I've got blue on this pattern I'm using gold, and then the red is the cream colour. So to start our brick stitch you're just going to pick up 2 beads on your needle like that, and we're going to pull them down towards the end of the thread, but we are going to leave quite a long tail thread as we're going to use that to add a loop onto our hearts, and then we're going to like knot it and weave it in. So you need enough that you can comfortably do that, and then we're going to take the needle and we're going to go back up the first bead that I added, just the first one, not that cheeky second one, and when we pull this needle through it'll cause the beads to sit side by side. Oops, you have to bear with me, I'm looking through a camera doing this and it's quite tricky sometimes. So now you can see those beads are sitting side by side. To add the third bead we're just going to carry on from where we are, exiting out of that bead there, and we're going to pick up our third bead, and then I hope I can move my fingers out of the way to show you. You can see where we're exiting out the top. We're now going to take the needle up through the bottom that way, and when we pull that through it'll make the 3 beads sit in a row side by side like that. And if they don't sit straight away, just wiggle them and they will do. There you go, you've got the first row of our beading done. Now before we move on to the next row we need to move our thread and our needle onto the end of a row. So just take the needle through one of the end beads like so and pull, and I want to position my tail thread now whilst I'm here so that we can add that loop easily at the end. And you can see the tail thread's coming out of the beads the same direction as my working thread. So I'm going to take the tail thread, and I shouldn't need a needle on it for this, but you can obviously put one on if you struggle with it, and I'm going to take it through the same hole that my working thread is exiting from, and I'm going to pull it through like so. And what that's done is put this in the right position for when we need to finish off at the very end, and you can just pull them like that if the beadwork is getting a little bit loose. So I'll bring this back in to show you. What we've done is that first row, and where that tail thread is exiting, that is the top of the hearts there, and that's important because that is where we need to add the loop. So you need to keep that tail thread as this top piece bead here. So the next row you can see are 4 beads, which means we need to add on to the 3, and so we're going wider, if you see what I mean. So to start the row we need to pick up 2 beads to start with, and that will be these 2 here, and as we work our way through the pattern we sort of weave our way through it that way rather than just always thinking we start at the beginning on, you know, each side. You have to read the pattern on alternate sides depending on where you finished. So we're going to pick up the 2 beads to start with and carry on. Right, I've got my 2 beads here, and I'm keeping my beads off to the side because otherwise my camera spends the whole time trying to focus on those and not what I'm doing. So to add these on, we've got the 2 beads, and we're going to take our needle under those bridging threads there that goes between those 2 beads and pull it through like this, and you can just move those beads if you need to so they sit on either side. Now take your needle and you're going to go back up that sort of second bead there, so the one that's nearest, and pull. And when you've done that, you can just tighten up your beadwork like that, and you can see you added your 2 beads on top. Right, to add the other 2 beads, we're going to do them one at a time. So I've picked up one more gold bead on my needle, and I'm going to take the needle under this thread that's bridging between the 2 beads on the lower row, just there, and we're going to pull through like that, and then take the needle back up through the bead. And what's happening is, obviously, once you've trapped the thread underneath the threads below, when you pull it up, that thread is trapping the thread that you're working with, and sorry, my thread's got looped under the beads, and that's what's holding that bead in place. So as you can see now, we've got the 3 beads on top of the other 3 beads, and we just got the last one to add in the row. So to add the last bead in the row, I've picked the bead up on my needle, and I'm going to take the needle under the thread that's going, so it's that bridging thread basically, and that's going to be our anchor point for this bead. So we're going to pull that through like that, and then back up through that bead, whoops, like that, and pull. There you go. You can see once I've tightened the beadwork up, they all sit really neatly stacked one on top of the other. So our next row is this one here with 5 gold beads in a row, and we're still increasing, so the beadwork is getting wider, and that means we need to pick up 2 beads to start with, and then we'll add the other ones on one at a time. There we go. I've got my 2 gold beads there, and we're going to go under this bridging thread and pull through like that, and then I'm going to take my needle back up through this one here, so it's the one sort of in towards the beadwork, unhook my thread that's just got stuck on my desk, and when we pull it through like that, those beads are now sitting on top. So I'm going to add the other 3 beads now to here, so 1 bead at a time. So 2 of them we're going to use these bridging threads, and the 3rd one we're going to add on to the end like we've just done. So here's one of them. Just go under that bridging thread, and you must always go back up through the beads because that's what's going to secure it and make it sit flat. So that's the first one. And the second one once it focuses. And this pattern is really quite repetitive. There's just 2 little places where you have to do a funny little turn to get the thread exactly where you need it. But other than that, if you're increasing a row, you pick up 2 to start with, and if you're not, then you pick up 1 to start with. And the same with the the end of the row as well. If you don't need to increase it, you don't pick up the extra bead. So as you can see, now we've used up all those bridging threads. The last bead is going to be tagged on the end, just like we did before. So I've picked my bead up onto my needle, and I'm going to take my needle under those bridging threads there and push through. And then we're going to take the needle back up to secure that bead on. Having thread keeps wanting to hook onto my desk. There we go. And now all our beads are sitting nicely on top of each other. So let's move to the next row. As you can see on the next row, we've got 5 more gold beads here, and we are currently working on this end here. So we're stepping up to this way and then going down here. Because we're not increasing out that way, we only need to pick up 1 bead to start with, and then we'll tag on the last bead on the end like we did before. So it's still 5 beads, but we're now shifting the beadwork down so we can get this angle here and here. So I shall show you how I do that. Right, because the row is now decreasing on this end and we're going sort of in a little bit, we only pick up 1 bead to start with, and we just complete the stitch as we have every other time. So under that bridging thread and then up through the bead to secure it on like that. Oops. Put the needle down so I can show you. You can always just tighten it up. Can you see there? And you'll be able to see the thread that's on the outside of the bead, and that's fine. That's how it always is in brick stitch, which is probably worth mentioning now to try and make sure that your thread that you're working with isn't too contrasting a colour, unless of course that's a look you're going for. But I've gone for this white because it's the most neutral with the 2 colours that I'm using. But yeah, that's just the 1 bead there. So now we carry on adding all the other beads using these bridging threads. So I've picked up my bead and down, and I won't make you watch me do every stitch. I just want to cover most bases, and then I'll do a few little fast forwarded sections after I've told you what I'm about to do, because otherwise this is going to be a really long video and I don't want that, because nobody's going to want to watch it. So that's 1. That's another 1. My hands are slippy because I've just put hand cream on as well, so I'm struggling to grip my needle. There you go, so there's 3 added on. I'm about to add my 4th bead, and this one uses this last bridging thread here. So the last one we're just going to have to add on to the side like we did before. So take your needle up through the bead to finish off that stitch, and once you've got the hang of it, you can actually fly through this quite quickly. So that last bead there is just added on using that bridging thread between those 2 beads like that, and pull through. My thread really doesn't want to cooperate and is desperately hugging onto my camera every time I put it through, and then up again through that bead to secure it in place, and pull tight, and there you go. You can start to see that angle is building up down there, but we've stopped going out on that side and cut in. So let's have a look at the next row. Right, so we're here and we're exiting out the bottom here, so we need to work our way up like that. Now these 2 rows are very, very similar, so I might just go off and do both of those, and then I'll fast forward through them so you can watch me do them, but I won't make you watch me in slow motion doing it. So because we are still increasing off this edge and decreasing here, we're going to pick up 2 beads to start with, and then when we reach the end of the row, we're just going to use that final bridging thread and nothing else. You know, we don't need to add one on the end or anything like that, because we need to keep that gradient there. So it's 5 beads in each row. When we start the next row, we're going to pick up 1 bead, and then we're going to have to add the bead on the end there, because like I say, we're reading it like that. So you just have to keep that motion in mind when you're adding your beads on. So I'm going to go do both of these rows, and you can see what I'm doing, and I'll come back when we're working our way back up the other direction. There we go, that's all done, and you can start to see that's the first half of our heart completed when we turn it the right way around. So we're just down here at the lowest point on this first heart. So we're exiting at the bottom here as well, and we now need to start building back up to build the second half of the heart and to start introducing the second heart. So the first row is just 5 more gold beads. Because we're not increasing, we're only going to pick up 1 bead to start with and then add the other bead on the end, because this row is increasing on this side here. Right, so just like all the other steps, we just pick up the 1 bead and pop it on. And secure it on that way. Right, I shall do all the other 4 and come back to you when I'm done. Right, there we go. So now for the fun bit, we can start building up the other heart. So let's have a look. We are exiting out the top here. So we now need to add 5 beads, but only 2 of them are going to be gold this time, and then we're moving on to that sort of cream colour. So we are also increasing the row, so we're going to pick up 2 beads to start with, and then add all the other beads one at a time, just the same stitch, just with the new colour introduced after the first 2 beads. So I shall go away and do that, and then we'll come back for the next row. So we're exiting out of the bottom here, and now we're going to increase on both ends. So as you can see, I've got well, starting down here, we've got 4 of our cream coloured beads and then 2 more gold. So we're going to have to pick up 2 beads to start with, and then we're going to have to add a bead on the end here. I'm going to work my way through this pattern so that I get right to the end of this heart, blue heart here. So this is the gold one, sorry. So I'm going to do this section here, and I'll do like a little fast forward so you can see what I'm doing. But you can easily see that once we've done this row here, we're only going to add 1 gold per stitch. So the next row will be 1 gold, and then the remaining ones and the cream colour, and we're going to have to increase the row here, so add this one on the end. And then when we finish this row, we start here, and we're going to move our way up by picking 2 beads up to start with and carrying right on till the end until we add that blue one, or sorry, the gold one on at the very end. There we go. You can see now this gold heart is completely finished and our second heart is starting to creep in from the side. So I'm just going to bring our pattern in and show you we're exiting out of this bead here. And as you can see now, for the next few rows, we're just going to be working on the ivory heart here. So we need to put our needle into a position whereby we can exit out of this first sort of cream coloured bead here in the row, because obviously we're exiting out that gold one, so we need to move down one. So we're going to have to do a little sort of turn with the needle and thread so we position it correctly so that we can then start from this bead here, because as you can see we're missing a bead here. If we were just to step down as we normally do, we'd end up filling in this gap, and we don't want that for the minute. So what we need to do is take our needle and put it down into this cream bead here and pull it through. It shouldn't be tight at this point. These, if you're using Delicas, they've got nice size holes in the middle. And I'm just going to wiggle my beadwork. I'm hoping you can see it. You need to now catch one of the threads that's going up between these beads here to wrap your thread around. So let me see if I can position it to show you. This is going to be tricky to show you, but I've pulled my threads and I can see that bridging thread that's joining those two beads together, and I've just pushed my needle through it. Pull through like this without your tail thread wanting to join the party. Right, so that now is under that bridging thread and it should just pop and you won't be able to see it. Now take your needle back up through this cream bead. So much easier said than done when you're looking through a camera, like that, and pull through. I've put hand cream on, which is causing me some difficulty. If you do struggle, you can just use your pliers and pull like that and pull it through. Once you pull it through, that bridging thread will be holding the working thread in place. Come on, that's my tail thread again. Desperate to join in. There we go. And now we've positioned ourselves so that we're exiting out of this next bead along and we are ready to carry on with our brick stitch. So I'm just going to bring in our pattern again. You can see that we are decreasing here and increasing on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and do the next 2 rows probably. So we're just working our way down on this side and increase on this side. So we'll start here and work our way down. So pick up 1 bead to begin with, add a bead on the end, pick up 2 beads to begin with at the very point to increase, and then just finish off your row as normal. There we go, that first half of that second heart is now complete, and we need to work our way back up the other side so that we can introduce the third heart. So I'm going to bring my pattern back in. We are exiting out of this bead here on the end, so we're going to add another row of beadwork here where we start to go up the other side. So we're going to increase by picking up 2 beads to start with, and we just add all the other beads on one at a time to finish this row off, and then we can work on to the third heart. Right, there we go, that row is now done. So we are exiting out the bottom here, and we're now going to continue to move our way up into the cream heart, but we're going to start adding on the gold one as well. So we've got 5 cream beads, and then we're going to go with the gold at the very end. Now this row here has a little funny turn at the end, just like we had to do down here, because we're going higher than the previous brick stitch row. So I'm going to add these cream beads here, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how I add that very last one there. So to start with, I'm just going to pick up the one bead and continue my way along. Right, there we go. I've added all those cream coloured beads, and now we need to add another bead on top of this, a gold one. We've got no more of those bridging threads between those beads left, and we've already added a bead on by using the thread at the side. So all I'm going to do to start with is to simply pick up the bead that I need on my needle and take the needle back up the cream, so moving sort of from the beadwork and out, and pull it through. But two things really, it's not very secure at the minute, and we're now exiting out of this cream bead here, and we really need to finish exiting out the gold. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to take it underneath the bridging thread. I hope you can see. So it's this bridging thread that's going between these two cream beads here, and I'm just going to take that underneath, and that's now trapped underneath that thread. So I can take my needle back down into this top cream coloured bead here and pull it through like that, and then I can go back up into the gold like that, and that's now really secured that gold bead on, but also put our thread in a position so we can carry on building up the beadwork for the next row along. Right, so we're now exiting out of this gold or blue bead here. The next row is we're going to keep on increasing up this side and decreasing down the bottom of this heart here. So we're going to pick up our two beads to start with. In this case it's going to be a gold and a cream, and then we're going to finish off with the remainder of the creams here. This is just a mirror image now of the other one we've done, so we're just working in reverse. So I'm going to go away and do that, and then I'll come back and we'll finish this section off, and then we'll move on to the rest of the third heart. There we go, that row is done. And now by adding this beadwork here onto the extra little section we added at the top there, it's really made it much more secure. So that's all nice and neat, and it's not going to distort or anything like that. Right, so let's bring our pattern back, and we are exiting out of this bead here. Now you can see this heart is really getting a lot smaller at this end here. So we're going to move our way up, and it's only 4 of the cream beads here, and then we're going to start adding more of the gold heart. So we add on 2 of the gold beads at the end, and then I'll go ahead and do this other row as well. So we've then got 2 more gold beads and 3 more of the cream beads. So to do this row, we pick up 1 bead to start with, and then we add a gold bead off the end. And then on this row here, because we're going down, we don't pick up 2 beads, we only pick up the 1, and we finish just on that last bridging thread as well. So that would then finish that heart. I'm going to go and do that, and we'll come back before we move on to the last one. There we go, that cream heart is all finished, and we've just got the remaining gold heart now to do. So I'll just bring back my pattern. We're currently exiting out of this bead down here, so we're going to go up now and we're increasing the row. So we're going to add 5 beads on, and because we're increasing, we're going to pick up 2 to begin with and then finish off the row, and then we'll move straight on to the next row, which is another 5 beads, but this time we'll only pick up 1 to begin with and then add another one on at the end. Right, there we go, we've added those 2 rows, and now we need to build the heart up on the other side. So just have a look here, we're exiting out, I think it's the bottom, yeah, the bottom down here. So we now need to add it's 3 more rows of 5 beads each, and each time we do it we're going to gradually increase this side and decrease on this side. So we're going to pick up 1 bead to start with here, add 1 on the end, and when we go to the next row we'll pick up 2 to begin with and finish on that last bridging thread. And when we start the 3rd row we're going to pick up 1 bead and then add 1 on the end. So I'm going to go off and do this whole section here, because I think by now you've probably got a feel for what I'm doing, and then I'll just come back, just because these are obviously a different count of beads. So I shall do these and then come back when I've done them. There we go, all those rows of beading are done, and we just need to finish this heart off now. So we are exiting out the top here, and we've got 2 more rows to add, 1 of 4 beads and then 1 of 3 beads, so they're decreasing on each row. So we pick up 1 bead to start with, and we finish off using the bridging threads on the last bead. So really simple step. I shall go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back to add the beaded loops for our chain to attach onto. There we go, we finished, and you can see that really conveniently our working thread is exiting out the top of this heart here at the end, because this is where we're now going to add our little beaded loop for our chain to be attached to. So to do that you're just going to get 3 more beads. I'm using the gold beads, so just onto your needle, and then you're going to take the needle into the next gold along, so you're going to form the loop between those beads like that. You can see just with one little pull they've jumped into that loop. Now I'm going to take my needle through this again so that the thread isn't just one single strand. We want it a little bit stronger than that, because obviously this is where the most wear and tear is going to happen. So to do that I'm taking my needle down through the bead that sits between these 2 top beads, and I need to get back up so I can weave back through those beads, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna go down like this, just make a little turn so I can turn my thread around and my needle around and go back up. So I've done that, and I'm going to take my needle, and if you can see, if I pull the thread up under the bridging thread that's going, whoops, between these two beads here. There we go. So I've just pushed the needle through under that thread, and I'm going to pull it through like that, and that's just going to trap the thread in place, and then I'm going to turn it around to the back, and we're going to work our way back up. So now we're going to go back up through the bead that we just came through like that, with the idea now that that thread won't undo itself. It might get a little bit tight. If it does, you can use your pliers. That thread that we just looped it under will hold it in place, and now we're ready to go back up and through our beadwork. So I'm going to go back up to the top from there, and then through all those beads again, like that, and then back into that gold bead just underneath as well. So completed that circle. Oh, it doesn't want to come through, give me a sec. If at any point it really feels like the needle will not go through, then it's a warning, but in this instance it's just slipping out my hands. There you go, and that's just made a little loop there. I'm going to knot these threads, and then I will come back after I have done the loop on the other side. So in order to do that, you're just going to put your needle on the end and repeat the steps here, but on the other side. Right, I will very quickly show how I do my knotting as well, because obviously if you've not done this before, that'll be a mystery as well. So I'm just taking my needle through the beadwork just a little bit, and I prefer to do the knotting on the edges if possible, because it's just easier to catch the threads that you need to use. So just pull this down like that, and I'm going to keep working my way through. So don't make any new bead paths, just literally stitching my way through the next beads available for me like this. That's my tail thread, and I'm going to keep going. Right, so now I'm going to come up and out of this bead here without stabbing myself in the finger if possible. Just checking I'm going the right one. Yep. Right, now to knot my thread, I'm exiting out of this bead here, and I'm just taking my needle under the bead, the thread that's going up between these beads, push that through, and we're going to pull the thread through so that it forms just a little loop like that. And then you take your needle and you pull it through the loop, and then I reach a certain point where I put the needle down and I just pull the thread like that, give it a nice pull, and then take your needle into the next bead along, and that knot that you've just made will disappear into the beadwork, and it's securing the threads. Now I'll do this a few times all the way along, and you can sometimes do it twice or once, however you want to do it, but that's how you do that. And once you're happy with it, you can cut your extra threads off. So I'm going to go away and do all that to finish this off, and then we'll attach the chains to our necklace. There we go, there's our finished hearts, and I've just used a little jump ring to join the beaded loop and the chain together on both sides, and then obviously added a clasp. I've finished this necklace to be 18 inches long because I think it sits better on a slightly shorter length. So that's what that one looks like. But when I was practicing the pattern, I made it for myself in this really lovely dark blue and pinky red colour. So you can see it looks quite different depending on how you know, which colours you choose, which colour chain you use. It completely changes the feel of the necklace depending on those two factors. Anyway, I shall put links in the description below for the brick stitch heart bracelet that I did before, and for the blog post where you can go and find the free PDF that accompanies this, so you can keep the pattern for yourself. Alright, I hope you've enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Bye!